Whether it was a direct impact on the personal lives of the people, or something that sprouted from the events of the Great War, World War I greatly affected many people throughout the last 100 years. Most of Europe was affected, making America the perfect place for refuge for everyone. The war collapsed the European economy, gave a platform for the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany to rise, incited anti-Semitism, and ultimately drove thousands of people out of Europe. This video is a story of how and why my father's family came to North America and the reasons that I am living in Toronto today. My father's father's mother, so my great-grandmother on my father's side, was originally from Berlin, Germany. She was one of the few lucky children who got on the Kindertransport in 1938, allowing her to escape the terrors of Nazi Germany and the Holocaust. She later met her husband, Edward, or my great-grandfather on my father's side in Scotland years later. My great-grandfather, or my father's father's father, lived in Scotland His family lived in Scotland for over 3 generations. They were deeply rooted in the lifestyle and the culture of Scotland, but due to their financial instabilities and lack of infrastructure caused by the war, they had to leave Scotland. Edward was a cobbler and his wife a seamstress. But raising a family of 4, my grandfather, his wife, and 2 kids on their salary was extremely difficult. In 1951, America presented a better and more economically stable lifestyle for the whole family, so they left Scotland and went to the US. As you can see here, America advertised high living standards and better economic opportunity than many other places around the world. Once they landed in Ellis Island, New York, they got processed there as refugees, then moved to New Jersey, where they raised their 2 kids, eventually retiring and moving to Florida. World War I was rise to the Bolshevik Revolution, which in turn created the Soviet Union. Herschel, my father's mother's father's father, came to America in 1921 at the age of 52 with his family, as shown here. He had 7 children, including my great-grandfather, Hanoch, as you can see from the circle picture. They left their home in Moldova to live in New York. They were a pretty religious family, as you can see from the kippah worn on one of his son's head. To avoid conscription to the Red Army of their eldest son, the rise of the Soviet Union, the emergence of pogroms in Russia, as well as the rise of anti-Semitism, Herschel's family was forced to leave. For them too, America presented a safe, ethnically diverse environment where they could practice their Judaism in peace. It also presented a more stable and less corrupt political system. The Krupnik family led a hard life. They had barely any money, the Soviet Union was on the rise, causing political unrest, and the pogroms were driving them out of their country. The father, Hanoch, was forced to travel back and forth between America and Russia to find work as a mechanic. My great-grandmother, or my father's mother's grandmother, Rachel Leah Krupnik, came to America with her mother and 3 sisters at the age of 12 in 1923. From Russia, the Krupnik traveled to Warsaw to seek refuge from the terrible situation they lived in. They worked odd jobs to be able to support themselves and pay for the trip to the United States, all while the husband was in America. They stayed in Warsaw for 2 years, then made the trip to Belgium to board a ship to the US. The family was extremely poor and could no longer support themselves in Russia, so for the same reason as my great-grandfather, they left. My grandparents later met in New York. My grandmother, Gloria, was born 1943 in New York, and my grandfather, Ron, in the same year, but in Scotland. His family moved to America in 1951. Gloria and Ron met at a party in October of 1968, got married, and lived in New York until 1969, when they moved to New Jersey. They had their first child, my aunt, in 1970, and my dad in 1973. They lived in New Jersey for 4 years, then moved to Montreal to allow Ron a better opportunity as a data management agent. His firm later offered him a raise if he went to Vancouver branch, so they left there. It was fairly easy for my grandma, Gloria, to find work, as she was a university professor in education. Although my dad was born in New Jersey, he spent about 40 years of his life growing up in Vancouver. My parents met at a Chabad lecture in Vancouver and decided to live there for the majority of our lives. On September 11th, 2003, I was born at Vancouver General Hospital. I, as well as all my siblings, were born in Vancouver and moved to Toronto in the summer of 2017. We moved to Toronto for a better Jewish life, which Vancouver could not provide. The Jewish community was lacking in many areas in Vancouver. The schools were small, the Jews were mostly secular, making it very hard to find a religious friend group. My school was not in line with the philosophy of my family. We moved specifically to Toronto because of the huge Jewish community. It was English speaking, has a school more in line with my family's philosophy, and offers an all around better Jewish life. Once in Toronto, I started grade 9 at Or Chaim, and my brothers all went to Netivot, bringing me here today.